right.
Welcome into the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock Show. Here to get you ready for today's Ambetter 301. I am Jason Floyd. We are sponsored by PrizePicks. Talk about PrizePicks here later on the show. Some of those props that we're liking over there with their prop-based contest that they have. Of course, you can download their app in the App Store or play over at PrizePicks.com. Of course, so you see that banner right at the top of the screen about that promo code you can't take advantage of right now over at PrizePicks. Of course, as always, I am joined by Chris Pennell. Chris, always great to be here on a Sunday afternoon, talk a little NASCAR DFS with you. As you know, last week it was a week where it necessarily wasn't about the Dominators, but that is a totally different story here this week.
Yeah, we were mainly just picking drivers from the back last weekend and hoping they avoided the wrecks. That is not going to be the case for me this weekend. I like a lot of drivers starting up front because we can actually project Dominator points. Fast laps are going to be projectable this weekend. The drivers up front are probably going to be picking those up. And we've seen it a lot of times so far this year, the short flat tracks, that it's been pretty tough to pass. So definitely looking at the guys up front. And I forgot to do my little intro. What's up, Jason? Looking forward to the race today. Should be a fun one. Can't leave you out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we talk about roster construction, so this is what I did was I'm using our top driver tool over at Stokastic.com. Take advantage of the data and tools we have over there when you're a Stokastic Plus member. If you're not a member, we'll tell you about a great promo we have for new users coming up here in a moment. But I'm looking at that Dominator pool, and I sat there. I created a group in Cruncher to sit there and say, give me at least 2 to 3 of these drivers because there's 210 Dominator points on the board today on DraftKings.
Yeah, I did pretty much the exact same thing. Most of my builds include at least 2, but a lot of them are getting 2-3 Dominators today because, like you said, well over 200 Dominator points available to us. In these short flat tracks, they're going to take bite quickly. So I basically just threw in Martin Truex, Chase Elliott, Chastain, Kyle Busch, and William Byron in my Dominator pool. I'm getting at least 2 of those guys in all my lineups.
Yeah, you got to look at those Dominators and finish position, obviously, is going to be key in terms of developing our lineups here today. Before we start kind of getting into the roster of the salaries here, practice time. So obviously, we're going to talk about that with Kyle Busch, the great things we saw there with him. But Team Penske wasn't a great day yesterday.
No, and I was very surprised because heading into the weekend, I thought this was going to be a Team Penske week. I thought it was going to be a good weekend for Ryan Blaney to get that first victory. And he opened up as the favorite to win over in Vegas, and Joey Logano was not too far behind. But they completely missed the setup yesterday. I mean, 24th in the 1 lap and 22nd in the 5 lap for Joey Logano in practice. We saw Blaney 23rd and 21st. So didn't bring a lot of speed. I think they did make some adjustments. I don't think they're going to be that bad during the race, but at their price points, I just can't see them dominating over the likes of some of these Toyotas or some of the Chevys from Hendrick.
Yeah, I remember, I want to say maybe Phil tweeted this earlier in the week when the salaries came out, and he's like, are we already talking about Ryan Blaney Chalk week? Well, boy, how things have changed here in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and that's just for me to say, thank goodness for practice this season because – you know, if this kind of translates towards the race, we would have been all in on Team Penske just based off of similar track data we've had this year. And that's completely just swayed the way we were thinking so far on Sunday morning and afternoon.
By the way, should note green flag 3:18 p.m. Eastern time, lock on DraftKings over there at 3:16 p.m. Eastern time. So help you. Of course, you got any questions here on the race, be sure to lock those in, whether if you're a premium member over our Discord channel, as I got that right up here on the screen or right here in the YouTube chat. But let's get right into these top drivers here, the drivers that are above 9,000 above over on DraftKings. Let's start with Kyle Busch. He's starting 17th. Most expensive driver over on DraftKings at 11,000, 12,500 over there on FanDuel. Obviously, I know you've already talked about this in some of the videos you've done. Practice speeds are there. He's 17th, so he got some place differential there, and he very well can make his way up to the top here.
Yeah, he's kind of like the perfect play today. And I'm not going to say he's a lock by any means. There's definitely other guys you can get to in tournaments. But just in a vacuum, he looks like the overall best play on paper. Starting in 17th, you have that PD upside mixed in. He was arguably the fastest car in practice. He's killed it so far this year at the short flat tracks. He's got some of the overall best numbers. Has been very consistent in the top 10 each and every single time, and just finished second at the most recent short flat track we were at about a month ago at Gateway. And overall, the second best average finish, a time for the most top 10s. I mean, like I said, he just checks all the boxes, and it's really not that hard to fit him in. And over on FanDuel, him being only $12,500, it's really easy to fit him in.
Next up, you got Joey Logano. He is starting 12, 10,800 on DraftKings, 13,500 on FanDuel. While he is the second most expensive driver here, Chris, he is not a popular driver that people are going to today.
Yeah, and it's definitely probably not what we were thinking heading into the weekend, because if you're looking at what he's done at the short flat tracks recently, finishes at first and second, and that's typically what he does at short flat tracks. He typically kills these certain track types, but super slow in practice. We kind of already talked about that earlier. So for me personally, at this price point, for a guy that I don't think is going to be able to dominate this race, he's just not going to be an importance in my player pool.
Yeah, that was to me when I was putting my Dominator pool. I'm sitting here, I'm going, God, I didn't put him in my Dominator pool.
I didn't either. And I mean, if you want to stretch it to Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, your Dominator pool, you can do that. But even then, I don't think they're going to pop up very much.
Yeah, it's just one of those things I was like, but I mean, look, if you are looking to get leverage on the field, Joey Logano would be a way to go there, but there are some warning signs over there with him. Next up, we've got Denny Hamlin. He's starting 14, 10,600 DraftKings, 12,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised once we got updated Vegas odds after practice and qualifying that he ended up having the third best odds to win the race, even better than Kyle Busch at the time. Better than guys like Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, William Byron, all guys that were much faster than him at practice. And it's not like Denny Hamlin qualified that well either. So I was a little bit confused about that. He's great at short flat tracks over the course of his career, fine at New Hampshire. But so far this season, finishes of 34th, 28th, backed into a win at Richmond, was definitely not the best car, and 13th at Phoenix. I'd much rather play a couple of his teammates. So I'm not going to be too high on Denny Hamlin.
Of course, we appreciate everyone that's tuning in here for the NASCAR Live Before Lock show. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Of course, once you subscribe, be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when a show or a video has been uploaded to the channel. Next up, we will go to Martin Truex Jr., who is on the poll, 10,400 DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel. I mean, look, he's going to be a popular play today. He's got a chance to rack up a ton of Dominator points. I think to me, it's more of a question of, you know, do you want to maybe try to get a little less on the field than him to maybe try to separate yourself in these big GPPs?
For me personally, I want to be overweight on Martin Truex. If I had to pick between being underweight on Kyle Busch or Martin Truex Jr., I'd rather be underweight on Kyle Busch because I think we have other similar plays to Kyle Busch. Meanwhile, Martin Truex Jr. is in a perfect spot to pick up a lot of laps led. He's done it many times in New Hampshire in the past. He's good at short flat tracks. He was really fast at Gateway. He has the best pit stall. He has a really good pit crew that's helped him maintain or gain spots throughout the season, which is going to be very important at a track like this where passing typically is tougher. Didn't like really light it up in practice, but was still top 5 in the one lap. But for me, having this premium track position, if he can lead all of stage 1 or at least a good chunk of it, good chances in the optimal unless he happens to have a mechanical issue, which is not something we can project.
And Jay Lopez mentions about how much is too much Truex.
I wouldn't mind having 60+% today. I think once you start getting to like close to 70, you might be pushing it because since he's on the pole, if he ends up having a bad pit stop early on or there's any mechanical issue, there's not any like leeway for him to be able to lose too many spots. He has to get those Dominator points. And if he ends up getting passed by Elliott at the beginning, who we're about to talk about, something to keep in consideration, but I'm pretty comfortable with him being my highest owned driver today.
Yeah, when I was doing my 20 max, I will tell you my two highest owned drivers were Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. And I was like, I'm sitting here, I've got the CSV in front of me, and I'm like, God, do I have too much? Like I'm having that like debate, but then I'm just saying like sometimes it's like just don't overthink it. Just do it. You let the computer do his thing in terms of that. DFIC, appreciate you in the super chat. He goes, leaving side on the table makes sense today. In terms of NASCAR DFS, I always think it makes sense. Yeah,
it's a matter of how much are you going to leave on the table, because this is not one of those weeks like last weekend. My cash lineup left like 9,500 on the table, and that's perfectly fine. This weekend, not going to be the case. Like it's fine to leave a few hundred on the table, maybe up to 1,000, but this is one of those weeks where we have a lot of Dominator points. You are typically using most of your salary for the most part because the guys that are going to pick up those lap lead points typically are higher priced. So not gonna leave too much on the table, but leaving a few hundred up to like 800 is fine.
Yeah, my cash line today, I left 600 on the table.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine, I think, today.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, but it was one of those things of, and when I'm doing my cash line, so I'm hand building that,
right.
And I'm sitting there, and my thing was like, okay, I know I need at least 2 Dominators at bare minimum, and I was like, I really want to get to that 3rd Dominator as well. So, but to me, I think in generally, it's always a good way to look at there. And one of the things about Martin Truex Jr., I mean, look, it's when you look at our ownership and that DK top 6 percentage, it's extremely high. So he is a great play here today. Now, starting second, you just mentioned him, Chase Elliott. He is 10,300 DraftKings, 13,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, pretty close practice times on Saturday's session. And I honestly don't mind putting these guys in the same lineup together. A lot of people might shy away from that today, but there's a good chance these are the top 2 cars for the majority of the day. And it's not like not a law that they both can't lead laps because they're starting 1-2. They could very easily interchange throughout the race, where Truex leads the majority of stage 1. Then Chase Elliott happens to beat him on pit road with a good pit stop, or just makes a pass on a restart for stage 2, and he leads a good chunk of laps. Like, we could very easily see them both lead over 50% of this race. And if that's going to be the case and they don't wreck out by some chance, I mean, they can very well both be in the optimal lineup, and both being in the low 10K range, they're pretty easy to fit in together as well.
Appreciate Tim Olson over a Score Chat giving me the little hat tip. It's actually raining right now at the track, and just looking at the radar, it looks like there is it does looks like it should pass through here. So just something to kind of notice there. Apparently it is raining pretty good there in New Hampshire. Next up, we have got Ryan Blaney. We mentioned about a little bit before. He's starting 11th, 10,000 on DraftKings, 14,000 on FanDuel. Before 48 hours ago, he was the favorite to win this race, and we've talked about how that's changed.
Yeah, and it's quite surprising, because if you're looking at the speed rankings so far this year at similar tracks, Ryan Blaney is just crushing the field. He's got the overall best numbers at short, flat tracks, and he's been great at them in his career. It's just, it seems like Penske has missed the setup. Now, I'm not going to make practice speeds always be the end all be all, but it is concerning that Penske as a whole was really bad. He got a little bit better later in the run, but at $10,000 starting at 11th, can he be a top 8, top 5 guy? Sure, but is he going to be able to get up front and pass guys like Elliott, Truex, Busch, and Chastain once they get up there? I don't really think so.
Now, speaking about Ross Chastain, he's the next driver. He's starting 18th, 9,800 on DraftKings, 11,500 on FanDuel. I thought you mentioned something interesting yesterday. Payback is coming at some point.
Yes. But when is it going to happen? That is the big question. We do not know. I feel like they might wait later on into the playoffs, but I'm going to tell you right now, I've been getting people saying they're fading Chastain because they think he might get wrecked. I can't build my lineups like that. That's an outside factor where I have no idea if it's going to happen. I don't want to fade Chastain if in the chance that he gets wrecked, because if he doesn't, he's a great DFS play today. And I would say the chances of him getting wrecked are pretty slim contrary to what other people think. Like, yeah, maybe him and Hamlin get into a scuffle. That's certainly possible, but it's not something you can really project. In the playoffs, maybe, sure, but at $9,800, this is one of those reasons where I don't think Kyle Busch is an absolute lock today. Like, I like him, but you can get Ross Chastain starting one spot further back, $1,200 cheaper, and Ross has been just as good as Kyle Busch this year. Didn't show quite the practice speeds, but like I said, practice is not going to be the deciding factor on just about everything. So Ross has shown many times this year where he's not the top dog in practice, but he's still super fast during the race. So like Chastain a lot, and I think you can play him in cash games, tournaments, whatever format today.
Right now, Chastain, 3rd highest percentage in our model to be in the top 6. So that's something that, as I'm, developing my lineups, as using all the data and tools we have over Stokastic.com, that is one of the top 6 percentage when I look at, obviously today, those DK top dominators, and then obviously looking over. And Ross is popping over on FanDuel as well to be in the top 5 there. Next up, you got Kyle Larson. He is starting 8th, 9,600 on DraftKings, 10,500 on FanDuel.
So we finally got a big price drop on Kyle Larson. Usually we've talked about him by now, but we're about 7 drivers deep, and we're just now finally talking about him. Cheaper on both sites. I think that does make him more playable, but as we've seen so far this year, he can run well, but he's just not really getting up front and dominating. And I can kind of see the same case being made for him today, where he can run well. He was top 5 in practice, but is he going to get up front and dominate? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be better than Truex. I don't think he'll be better than Chase Elliott. And I don't think he's going to be better than William Byron. And then you have to factor in guys like Busch and Chastain coming through the field. So I think he can be a top 5 contender, but not really an upfront dominator. So I'm a little bit underweight to him, not a full fade for me. It's mainly just because of the price drop, and it makes him more viable.
Speaking of William Byron, he is starting 6, 9,400 on DraftKings, 10,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think Byron's an excellent tournament play today. I'm hoping some people shy away from him. Obviously, Larson with the price drop is going to get some attention. And obviously, the other drivers we already talked about. But William Byron was first in the 1 and 5 lap in practice, third in the 10 lap. He dominated the short flat track earlier in the season. And over the course of his career, he hasn't been too bad at them. So $9,400, pretty easy to slide in as your second or third Dominator today.
Christopher Bell, he is starting 5th, 9,100 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel. And I know the video that you had over on this right here on the Stokastic YouTube channel, you did mention him a little bit.
Yeah, I was hoping he showed me some more speed in practice. It was kind of similar to Denny Hamlin where he didn't really wow me, but he was able to put down a fast lap for qualifying to get close to the front, which is definitely going to help him out. It's going to give him some nice track position to work with. And like I said, passing is usually going to be a bit tougher at these shorter tracks. The problem is it's weird because Christopher Bell in the past has always been amazing at short flat tracks. If you date back to last year, he's got some of the best overall average finishes, and New Hampshire is a fantastic track for him dating back to the Xfinity days. But starting at $9,100, it's going to be hard for me to get to a lot of him because I like some drivers that are right below him in price. I like William Byron a lot, like Chastain. So I'm not going to be overboard on Christopher Bell. He's actually been better at the intermediate tracks this year, but I still have I've got a decent amount of him just to cover just kind of hedge myself a bit.
Of course, one of the things I mentioned about is that top driver tool we have over at stokastic.com. Mention about if you've never been a Stokastic Plus user, right now is a great time to sign up, as you can save 50% off your first week of any Stokastic Plus pass. All you got to do is click the link in the video description below to activate this offer, or you can head to our join page and use the promo code NASCAR LBL, all caps, one word. That's NASCAR LBL for 50% off your first week of any weekly package. Of course, if you just want to play NASCAR DFS, you can take advantage of that promo right now at our NASCAR weekly checkout page and use this code to get 50% off your first week of any NASCAR package. Again, this is for new users only. Of course, Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on, but can easily be added on there. Take advantage. That top driver tool is a tool that I'm using to develop my lineups. And of course, figuring out what groups I want to do. I mentioned about earlier, Dominator group. I set mine to give me at least 2 to 3 Dominators that I put in my Dominator group. But when you are a member over Stokastic.com and look at that top driver tool, for me, obviously ownership is going to be such a massive tool to look at of what drivers are getting to who. For instance, like we mentioned about Joey Logano, just not getting ownership. Right. Don't necessarily love Joey Logano as a play today, but if you want to get a little bit of leverage on the field, you can definitely do that with looking at those ownership projections over there. Let's move on to the mid-tier drivers. So those two drivers in the 8 and 6K range. Let's start off with Kevin Harvick. He is starting 10th, 8,800 on DraftKings, 8,200 over on FanDuel. And I mentioned about that Dominator group that I was building. So yeah. I get all of it, and I get to Kevin Harvick, and I'm like, do I?
I was tempted to as well. I did not pull the trigger though.
I did not either. I don't know what it was that just said, no, don't put him in the Dominator pool.
Well, for my thinking was we haven't really seen him dominate in a long time. If you're looking at what he's done at short flats this year, talking 0 laps led per race, has been able to get in some fast laps here and there, but Kevin Harvick, I think his Dominator days are just about over. He was able to do well at New Hampshire last year. You got to keep in mind JGR did get wiped out early on due to rain, but Harvick at the short flats this year is one of the fastest cars on the track. Top 5 in average green flag speed, finished 2nd at Richmond, 6th at Phoenix, 14th at Martinsville, had an issue at Gateway, so I'm not going to count that against him, but he's excellent at New Hampshire, has 2 wins in the past few seasons here. The second best driver, only behind Brad Keselowski. I like him a lot. He showed some speed in practice. Looks like he has a really good long run car, which is what you kind of need at this kind of track. So $8,800. Like him a lot in DK as a tournament play, but over on FanDuel, $8,200. He's one of my highest on driver on the site.
Next up, you got Tyler Reddick, who is starting 13th, 8,600 on DraftKings, 8,500 on FanDuel. Of course, he made news outside of the track this week that got a lot of people talking here. But what's your take on Tyler?
I think it's awesome. He's going to that new team in a couple of years. It's going to be awesome seeing him with 23XI. But as far as this week is concerned, I'm not a huge fan. It didn't show me a ton of speed in practice. It was kind of in the mid-20s in the 1 and 5 lap, 15th in the 10. Starting in 13th, I don't love the upside there. I'd much rather get to Harvick, and I'd much rather get to Chase Briscoe, who we're about to talk about. So for Tyler Reddick, I'm pretty underweight today.
Chase Briscoe was just popping off when I was doing my crunches. He's starting 29th, 8,400 on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel. It was to the point that I'm like, God, am I just getting too much Chase Briscoe?
Yeah, I tried to limit my Chase Briscoe exposure because I think the ownership might be getting a little bit up there. I realized he was super fast in practice, but like I said, practice is not going to be the end all be all for me. I don't think he's going to be a top three car as his practice speeds indicated. And I think there's other good pivots in similar price points. So I like Briscoe today. I think he's fine in cash. I think he's a fine tournament play. But for me personally, I'm not trying to go overboard like some people are.
Next up, you got Kurt Busch, who is starting third, 8,200 on DraftKings, 8,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I didn't like what I saw from Kurt in practice. I will say he's been very solid at the short flat tracks this year, but at $8,200 starting in third, we basically need him to hold ground. And the problem is there's a lot of PD plays that have a lot more of a safety net than Kurt Busch, like Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, Austin Cindric. So Kurt Busch basically has no room for error here. Didn't really flash anything in practice for me. I feel like he's going to fade a little bit, maybe a better short run car than a long run car. So not super excited about playing Kurt at this spot.
Eric Amarola, he is starting seventh, 8,100 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'd much rather get the Eric Almirola over Kurt Busch today. And maybe not something you really expect me to say too often, but at short flat tracks, Eric Almirola is awesome. He was top 10 across the board in practice. He won the most recent New Hampshire race. Like I said, keep in mind a lot of the top cars did wreck out, but he was still going to be fast nonetheless. And he's been great at them so far this year. So I think he's an excellent tournament play today.
Then you got Daniel Suarez, who is starting 19th, 7,900 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, not getting too much Daniel Suarez today. Looking at some of his numbers at short flats, did finish top 10 at Phoenix, but 23rd at Gateway, 29th at Martinsville, 16th at Richmond. At his price point, I feel like I'd just really go a little bit cheaper on some of the drivers we're going to talk about soon. So not excited about Suarez. Plus, he didn't really flash in practice.
Alex Bowman is starting 27th. He's 7,800 on DraftKings, 9,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Bowman's a very solid play today. He didn't really wow you in practice, but at this price point for a Hendrick car, it's just screaming value, especially for a guy starting nearly in 30th place. Was top 20 in practice. Looking at some of his numbers at short flats this year, he's actually been very good. 13th, 12th, 8th, and 14th. If he just gets you a top 15 today, he's going to hit value and you'll be pretty happy with him.
The driver starting one spot behind him is Austin Cindric in the 28th spot, 7,600 on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel. So a pretty substantial difference on FanDuel between Bowman and Cindric here.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to get to Cindric over on FanDuel, and that's going to reflect on exposures, where on DraftKings, I have a lot more Alex Bowman, but over on FanDuel, they start to get evened out more. I still prefer Bowman, but when you can get a close to $3,000 discount, it is kind of worthwhile getting to some Cindric there, but he's part of that Penske stable that sucked in practice yesterday. 28th, 27th, 19th for his practice speeds. Does have back-to-back finishes of 11th place at short flat tracks, but he's a rookie. It's still not always going to be a lock that he's going to do well that often because they always have consistency issues. I think he's a fine play, but I would rather get the Bowman.
Next up is Bubba Wallace, who is starting fourth, 7,400 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel. I want to mention this question that came in from Logan over to Scored before the show, where he said, is it a bad idea to take Bubba out of your pool?
I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Like, I'm all for playing Bubba in the right spots, but starting in fourth, I realized his car is not bad. He was seventh in the 5-lap in practice, fourth in the 15-lap. And if you are looking for a narrative today, we don't have many, but he does have the DraftKings car this weekend. So if you're looking for a narrative, that's about all I got. But starting in fourth, this is basically the ceiling for Bubba Wallace. And it's the chances of him hitting a ceiling are probably pretty low here. So it's going to be a pass for me.
Eric Jones is starting 22nd, 7,300 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, for Eric Jones, I think he's a solid play today. Finishes of 7th and 13th the past two short flat tracks. Was able to put up a sixth place in the 5-lap run in practice. Starting in 22nd, he's usually a favorite tournament play of mine, so I'm going to go back to the well here.
AJ Allmendinger, he is starting 20th today, 7,100 on DraftKings and 4,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the pre-show, the massive price difference from Adrian Allmendinger on DraftKings to FanDuel. Definitely would rather get to him on FanDuel. I think his price is a little bit too high over on DK. 15th one lap in practice, 24th in the 5-lap. Starting in 20th, I feel like he's going to finish right around this 18th to 22nd place range, so not really a huge fan of Dinger.
Brad Keselowski, he is starting 9th, 6,900 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I was hoping Keselowski would start a little bit further back because I did have some interest here because him and his teammate Chris Buescher were very fast in practice on Saturday, but it almost feels like Keselowski starting where his ceiling is for the most part, was able to put up an 8th place in the 1-lap in practice. But if you're looking at his track history in New Hampshire, it's amazing. One of the best drivers in New Hampshire, just really anybody. It has the best drive rating, the best average running position the past few seasons, but you got to keep in mind that wasn't Penske equipment. Now with RFK, you can't really expect those type of numbers, but I think he could be a top 12 contender. But the problem is starting at 9th, the upside is very limited.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 24, 6,700 on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel.
So Stenhouse, it's basically the same setup for him as each and every single short flat track has gone so far this year. He's starting in the 20s, which makes him look appealing. He's decently cheap, but his practice numbers were in the 30s, and he typically finishes around 25th to 30th place at every short flat track we've had so far this year. 32nd, 27th, 28th, 28th. I am not chasing the PDF side with Ricky Stenhouse. He just has not got it done yet this year, short flat track. I'm not sure what's going to be any different this time around.
So I may have unclicked Ricky.
That's fine with me. And it probably felt good to do that too.
It's just with the history there. Michael McDowell starting 15, 6,500 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. Once again, not much ownership there, but the guy just keeps producing though.
Right. And he's making it tough this weekend because I was thinking the same thing. Like, he's been hot, typically low owned. People don't want to play him. I think there's a good reason for that this weekend. He was awful in practice, was 30th in the 1 and 5 lap, and he hasn't exactly been great at the short flat tracks. He's been better at some other track types this year. 18th at Gateway, but then 25th, 30th, and 27th. I know we kind of been burnt by this a lot of times, but I'm fine with not much McDowell at all.
Austin Dillon is starting 30th, 6,300 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. And I just feel like Austin's going to be a popular player today just because of like, if he finishes 20 to 25, we've got a little bit of that place differential.
Yeah, and personally for me, I gave him a 19th to 20th place finish, which I'd say is pretty modest for Austin Dillon. But even then, that's popping for close to 35 points, which is amazing at $6,300 and $5,800 over on FanDuel. The problem is I'm getting kind of worried he's a bit of a trap play here. He might project well, but 29th in practice in the 1 lap, 20th in the 5 lap. But the thing is, he's also been really good at the short flat tracks this year. So I'm not really sure which one's going to win out. Because of the short flat track history this year, I'm playing Austin Dillon still, and I think he's a fine cash play. But I'm getting to a lot of the next driver we're about to talk about as a pivot off of him.
Of course, you talked about Chris Buescher a little bit earlier on in the show. He's starting 16, 6,100 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I love Chris Buescher today. I think he's one of the better plays on the slate once you factor in the price and, his ownership compared to some other guys. Like, from Chris Buescher to Austin Dillon, I mean, I wouldn't mind having more exposure to Buescher than I would Dillon because people are going to flock to Dillon. But if he's stuck in that 25th place range all day and Chris Buescher's battling for a top 15, because he's got the track position to start with, and he was 7th and 8th in practice, like, he has a lot more speed. Obviously, teammates with Brad Keselowski, you've already mentioned, he has some speed as well. So I think Chris Buescher here is an excellent play. And the short flat tracks this year, missed one due to COVID, but finishes at 15th, 15th, and 10th. I think he's in a great tournament spot.
Of course, this is a NASCAR Live for Lock shows. We're getting you ready for today's Ambetter 301, and we are presented by PrizePicks. Got to play over at PrizePicks.com. Be sure when you sign up, use that promo code AWESEMOs. They got an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Of course, they're prop-based contests they have going on over there. And we're looking at fantasy score here today. Martin Truex Jr., this number has not moved. It is still 52.5.
Yeah, it just makes no sense to me because I'm looking at PrizePicks projections. They have him sitting around 54 to 55 laps led, and then around 25 to 30 fast laps. And then Vegas has him for a 1 to 2 second place finish. Well, that just doesn't add up to 52.5 fantasy points. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I like taking the over. If he leads a good chunk of stage 1, he is going to kill this prop. So the numbers don't add up to me. So I feel pretty good about the over there.
William Byron, his number has gone up a little bit. At one point it was 38.5. It's now 40.5.
I think that makes sense. It's trending up because if you're looking at Byron's, he'd have to get a top 6 finish, which he's already starting 6. And I think he can hold his position, as we talked about, arguably one of the fastest cars, if not the fastest car in practice. And he already dominated the short flat track earlier in the season. If he can just hold a top 6, he's going to be hitting that prop. And you have to imagine he's going to mix in some fast laps here and there. And if he gets up front, he's killing that number.
The next up, we've got Ryan Blaney. His number is still 47.5.
So for him to get 47.5, so 48 and above, without any Dominator points, we're talking a top 3 finish. I don't see Blaney getting to the top 3 today. If you mix in some fast laps, maybe we're talking a top 4, top 5. But from what we saw in practice, Penske does not really have the setup this weekend. And I can definitely name 5 drivers that are faster than Blaney. At least that's what you'd project after what we saw on Saturday. So I feel pretty good about the under on that.
Of course, you can sign up right now over at PrizePicks.com. Be sure to use that promo code OSMOS. They got an instant first match deposit of up to $100. So put $100 in. They give you $100. So be sure to play over there at PrizePicks.com. Download their app in the App Store. Of course, we appreciate their support here of the NASCAR Live 4 Lock Show here on Stokastic.com. Let's now move on to the lower tier salaries. This will be the drivers who are underneath $6,000 over on DraftKings. And I will say I unchecked a lot of these guys. So Justin Haley, he is starting 25th. He's 5,900 DraftKings, 4,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Haley's a fine play down here. 16th and 15th in practice, tends to run better than where he qualifies and better than his salary would suggest where he runs. So I think Haley's fine here. Finishes at 14th at Gateway, 17th early in the season at Phoenix, then 31st and 29th. So it's been a bit hit or miss. But at his price point, he's a fine play and a pivot off of Austin Dillon.
Next up, you got Cole Custer, who's starting 23rd. He's 5,800 on DK, 4,500 on FanDuel.
I always hate playing Cole Custer, but he actually doesn't have a bad track record at New Hampshire. It's a small sample size, but I like the other Stewart-Haas cars. I like Almirola. I like Briscoe. I like Kevin Harvick. So I don't want to completely kick Cole Custer to the curb. So I think he's interesting in tournaments, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play Custer today.
Here's where the unchecking started for me. Corey LaJoie, starting 21st, 5,600 on DraftKings, 3,000 on FanDuel.
And I am totally fine with the unchecking of LaJoie. He's starting way too high for me. In 21st, his practice speed's indicated around a 25th place car for the most part. And if you're looking at his finishes at the short flats this year, has not finished better than 31st, 36th, 32nd, 31st, and 36th. So I don't mind not having LaJoie.
So you're telling me that's not good?
No, it's not very good at all.
Then you got Ty Dillon, who I did not uncheck. He's starting 35th. So I did not want to uncheck him. 5,400 DraftKings, 4,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, he's never a flashy play, but he just tends to not wreck and he tends to finish races, which is really all you can ask for at this price point in the starting position. Finishes of 27th, 23rd, 24th, and 15th at the short flat tracks this year. And actually showed some speed with his teammate Eric Jones, 18th and 16th in practice. So starting in 35th, if he doesn't wreck today, he's going to gain 5 to 10 spots.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is if we're getting to 3 dominators, we're going to have to get to someone down here. I mean, that's just, it's a roster construction reality.
Right. And if you're looking at that top drivers tool, these guys aren't going to pop, but they allow you to get those top dominators in there and then it evens out.
I mean, this is where, like, when you're developing, whether you're in a 20 max or a 150 max, this is where, like, why I'm unchecking these guys, or I would be creating a group that says at the absolute most, give me at most 1.
Right.
You don't want to be in a situation where, you know, like you get Ty Dillon and Harrison Burton both in your roster in relation, because I mean, like we talked about, there's 210 dominator points. Harrison Burton starting 31st, 5,200 on DraftKings, 3,500 on FanDuel. He was a guy that did pop off for me when I was doing my crunches.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with what he showed in practice. He was pretty fast, 13th in the 1 and 5 lap, then 6th in the 10 and 15. I definitely wasn't expecting that. And it's kind of odd because, you know, he's kind of that 4th Penske car, and with Wood Brothers, and Penske was awful, but he actually ended up showing some speed. I like him as a pivot off of Dillon. He's going to be lower owned, but not super excited about it, but the price point's nice.
Then I unchecked the rest of these drivers.
Yeah,
I didn't want to get to any of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the reason to have to get Gillen's the only one you'd consider because he's not an absolute junker, but even then it's like, why not play Burton or Dillon to start further back? So
yeah, like I just, you know, I don't want to put Cody Ware in my lineup. No. BJ, no. Josh, no. JJ, no. I don't want to get there.
And I don't see how they're optimal today unless there's a bunch of wrecks. And even then, it's like you don't expect that to happen at New Hampshire. I mean, the only guys I could see being optimal in this 5K range outside of like, you know, Custer and Haley, it'd really just be Dillon and Harrison Burton.
And when you look on the FanDuel side of the equation, they're getting no ownership.
Oh, and you'll notice on FanDuel, these are those kind of drivers, unless it's a super speedway, just don't make the optimal lineup because it's, you know, it's weighed heavier on finishing position, create a place differential. And these guys are not going to finish in the top 15.
But like you made a great point. I think you mentioned about Ty Dillon. I mean, it's just him being able to finish the race. If he finishes the race and just what it allows you to get to with the rest of your lineup.
And like we know there's going to be instances during the race. We don't know who that's going to be. A lot of times it happens to those better drivers because they're pushing it or just, things happen during it. And as long as Ty Dillon just avoids those mishaps during the race and stays clean, yeah, maybe he finishes the race multiple laps down, but other drivers are going to be doing that as well. And if he finishes 26, that's not a bad day for him.
And looking at the betting side of the equation today, so Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott are the favorites to win this race. They're both at plus 700. Kyle Busch plus 750. Kyle Larson plus 800. Ryan Blaney plus 900. And then we got four drivers at plus 1200, which are William Byron, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell's also plus 1200.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing a favorite out win today. It's one of those tracks at short flats where we typically see the top dogs rise, and we already have the top dogs starting in the front row, so it's going to be pretty hard to pass them. But if you're looking to try to get at least a little bit more value, I think Kevin Harvick potentially getting his first win of the season. This is a good time for it to happen. Has a great long run car. He likes his car, and he's going to have to get a win for a playoff push. So I think Kevin Harvick would be a decent, I don't want to call it long shot because it's 1,200, but at least you get some better odds. And I think William Byron's got a lot of speed for him to contend as well.
So the rest of the show is all about the listener questions. So you can line those up over in our Discord channel or also right here on YouTube. We'll get to all those questions as we go forward. And I'm going to start over in Discord where Mr. Moneybag says, is playing Chase Elliott and Martin Truex a dumb idea in a DraftKings GPP? How does each starting in the front row affect scoring?
No, it's perfectly fine to play them together. I'm hoping people are scared to do that, but I think people always forget where they can both lead a lot of laps today. It's not where whoever wins the start of the race is not going to, the guy that loses the jump at the race, he can always get up front at some point. I mean, they both have the two best pit stalls. They both have good pit crews to help maintain or gain spots on pit road, and they could very easily interchange the lead throughout the race. Not saying each lap, but from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, they're going to be contending the entire time. So I'm more than happy to play them both together.
Single entry, who would be a lock and what Dominator? For me, and this was Hockey Freak Sean asking the question, I found my core being Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., but that's going to be chalky. I mean, it just, you know it is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the first guy I'm plugging in is going to be Martin Truex Jr. He's in the best spot to lead a lot of laps today. And if you want to get off of Kyle Busch, I mean, just pivoting to a guy like Chase Elliott, William Byron as a secondary dominator is a great way to go about it.
Stan, any interest in Denny Hamlin?
There's not for me personally. Like, I know we like his teammates, Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. a lot today, but he just didn't show quite the speed that they did. And I can't really see him getting up front. He has kind of struggled with the short flat tracks this year, so I'm willing to kind of stay away.
Building a DK cash lineup, have 6,600 left. Do you go with Haley or Custer for PD or go with Buescher for the speed?
I would go with Buescher. Buescher is one of my favorite plays today when you factor in the price tag, so I'm fine with that.
Literally the same question that as I'm scrolling through the YouTube chat just came in Discord chat, and I feel like this is going to be a popular question for a lot of people. Last man in, single entry, Ty Dillon or Harrison Burton?
If it's a single entry, I'm going to go with Ty Dillon there. They have very similar upside at the end of the day. Both showed some speed, but Dillon starts 4 spots further back.
One of our Discord members is actually at the race. Tim saying the heavy part of the storms are through, just a light rain, if anything now. Air tightens out drying, definitely a delayed start, but that pop-up was about it for the rain.
Yeah, it's NASCAR's luck. I think Bob tweeted a 20% chance of rain today, so of course we get it down for the track.
Hey, man, at least it happened before the race.
Right, that is true. Because last year at New Hampshire, we had some weather issues where it started to rain, and like in first few laps, we lost all the JGR cars due to a wreck.
Yeah, Bob just tweeted this. Someone had asked him, he goes, do you have an estimated start time for the race? And Bob's response, no estimated start time yet. If lightning hold is lifted soon, as should be expected, it should be too much later than scheduled. I would think by 3:30 could get the green as rain has pretty much stopped.
Okay, and that's only like a 15-minute delay, so that's nothing too bad.
Yeah, so this was 26 minutes ago was when the track was put on a lightning hold. And this was 19 minutes ago where he said turns 3 and 4 are wet and need to be dried.
Okay. Yeah, doesn't change anything really for us, so we're good.
Hey, always helps when we got someone in Discord chat who's at the race and give us a real indication of what actually truly is going on there. Eric Jones or Austin Dillon on both slates?
Austin Dillon's gonna be popular, but I'm gonna start with Eric Jones there. I think the finishing position upside's a little bit better there.
Would you play Truex, Elliott, and one of the Bushes or Chastain in the same lineup?
So I'm assuming he means he has Truex and Elliott together already, and then he has to pick between a Bush or Chastain route. For me personally, I would go the Chastain route because we're gonna run a salary pretty quick there with Bush.
But this is also my thing with that lineup. Like the final two guys, say we're playing on DraftKings, like
Right.
You're going dumpster diving.
So I got it pulled up. I plugged those three in. We have 6,100 left per driver. You could go Ty Dillon, Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, but it seems a bit top heavy.
Oh man, yeah, that's oof. I mean, that situation, that's where you're just hoping that they can finish the race. That's why Ty Dillon's an interesting play to me today.
Right. And as long as he finishes the race, I think Chris Buescher's got a legit top 12, top 15 upside today. So I think he's just simply underpriced. Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, they're kind of in the back. So I do worry about them going laps down. But if they finish the race today and just don't suck, I mean, they can gain spots and be fine. So you have to hope, though, if Elliott and Truex don't just absolutely smash for lap lead points today, their line's going to be hurting because there's going to be a lot of other mid-range-ish drivers that ended up hitting.
Philip says, is Christopher Bell a good pick?
I wouldn't call him a favorite play of mine today. He's great at New Hampshire, great at short flats, so I don't think he's a bad play, but he didn't show me the speed I wanted. And I feel like a guy like Byron can pass him early on to be that lap leader early.
If you're making a single lineup, who would you rather pay up for, Kyle or Truex?
For me, it's Truex because like I said earlier, I think Ross Chastain is a very similar play to Kyle Busch today, and you can save 1,200. I love Kyle Busch today, not to make it sound like I don't, but I would rather stick with Truex first and then see if Busch fits after.
Philip also asking whether or not Kyle Larson's a good play.
I would call him more of a, like, as far as interest from low, medium to high, I'd say he's kind of lowish to medium for me. Like, I think he can run well, but I just don't think he's going to get up front and dominate over the likes of his teammates or some of the JGR cars.
DK single entry going with the 1-2 punch of Truex and Elliott. Last spot, Harvick or Chase Briscoe?
I like Harvick. I think Chase, like we talked about this earlier, where I said I think Chase Briscoe might be a little bit overowned today. I think he's fine for where the place differential upside is, but there's no guarantee he can just rip through the field. Kevin Harvick's got that track position to work with, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Harvick finished inside the top 5 today. So I'm going to roll with Harvick there.
Medicaid says Briscoe, Suarez, Bowman, or Cindric.
Briscoe, Suarez, Bowman, or Cindric. Projection wise, it's going to be Briscoe for me.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought just seeing the question was like, okay, well, who am I eliminating? Okay, I'm eliminating Suarez first.
Right, I would too.
All right, Briscoe's going to be a popular play.
Yeah,
Bowman's going to be a popular play. Like from a ownership aspect, I might go Austin Cindric.
Yeah,
depending on the type of contest you're playing in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess it would depend on what the rest of your lineup looks like. Because if you have other maybe not complete chalk plays with some pivots, I think it would be fine if you threw in a Briscoe. But if you're completely chalk with like Truex, Kyle Busch, and all those kind of guys, it would make sense to maybe get off a Briscoe there.
Like if I'm in playing in, the big GPPs, I'm more probably going for the ownership aspect of it. But like if I'm playing in like a single entry or cash lineup, my thought process would be a little different. For me, it's all about the type of contest I'm playing in and having that type of mindset. Like if I'm playing in a 20 max with a jillion people in it,
right,
I'm going to be more aggressive on really just trying to create some just crazy type lineups just because I don't want to play against myself. I want to play against the field.
Right. I 100% agree with that. Like when I'm building my 3 max lineups right now, which I'm trying to do while answering questions, I'm finding myself where I hand build a really chalk lineup and I'm like, I can't do that. I got to take a couple of these guys out. And I'm kind of just doing basically what you're talking about, the same process.
Yeah, when I was doing my 3 max earlier, I was like, okay, I kind of know who my core plays are today. And my mindset was like, do I just say screw it and put Truex and Kyle in every one of my three max? But I was like, no, I wanted to get away from them in one of my 3 max entries.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing basically. So in my 3 max, I am having 2 of each of these guys. So 2 of Busch, 2 of Truex, 2 of Elliott, and then I'm mixing around that.
Yeah. Logan wants to know, is fading Bubba and Briscoe a bad idea in a GPP?
Bubba and Briscoe, I'm fine with fading Bubba, but Briscoe is a guy I still want some exposure to today. Starting in 29th, he was fast in practice, and he does have a win under his belt at short flat track this year.
DFS Beer Pack asking Elliott or Truex. I mean, look, I think we've talked about how much you love Truex, but like if you're playing in a bigger GPP, I can see where you say, let me go to Elliott because of literally he's getting half the ownership that Martin Truex Jr. is getting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not factoring any of that in, it's always going to be Truex for me. But if you're looking for the lower ownership play just to get the pivot, and people are still going to play Chase today, but he's still going to be a pivot off of Truex, and I feel like the upside is very similar today. So if it's a tournament, I would lean towards Elliott. If it's cash games, give me Truex.
Someone's asking if anyone's going to the back of the field. I do not believe anyone is. Just double checking that right now. That. But I know when I looked earlier, there was no one going to the back of the field. Let's see here. Any Bowman? Obviously, I think Bowman's a nice play today.
Yeah, Bowman's too cheap for being in a Hendrick car. I definitely want to get some exposure to him. Very solid the short flat tracks this year. Top 20 in practice. At his price point, does not need to do much at all.
Yeah. Is Ty Dillon your most owned driver? No, he's not for me. No,
I'm not saying he's a bad play, but as far as being my most owned driver, that's definitely not going to be the case today.
It was trying to remember if it was Truex or Busch. It might have been Kyle.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Truex and Busch are my highest owned drivers today as well too.
Kevin says, why isn't Ryan Blaney a good play today? Isn't he really good at this track?
He's very good at these track types. I wouldn't say New Hampshire's his best track, but the thing is, I put more consideration, especially with the next gen car. I can't really use track history much these days because that was the case. Keselowski is the best play in the world today, and that's just not going to be what I'm saying. But it all depends on what we see on the track on Saturdays, and you can obviously factor in similar track history so far this year, which Blaney has been great at. But Penske did not look good at all yesterday, and they weren't even close. So that's my concerns there with Blaney.
Before we continue on with your questions, do want to let you know about a promo we got going on right now over at Stokastic.com, as Underdog has launched their Puppy 2 Best Ball contest for the upcoming NFL season, and you want to reserve your spot before it quickly fills up. With this, we are offering $1 weekly access to our Best Ball kit through July 17th. That's $8.99 off the original weekly price. Got to take advantage of this great deal we got going on. This package does include our Best Ball and season-long fantasy football rankings, Underdog daily draft rankings, our best ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, premium articles, and so much more. To activate this offer, use the promo code PUPPY. Once again, promo code PUPPY, PUPPY, at checkout, or simply click the link in the video description below as promo code PUPPY for $1 weekly best ball draft access. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Stokastic Fantasy Football and Best Ball YouTube channels for daily videos from our experts that will help give you an edge on the competition. And check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, as football season is right around the corner. We are under a month away from the preseason kicking off. Next question, Bell or Byron?
For me, it's Byron. He showed a lot more speed in practice. I like the price point quite a bit. I'm hoping he was a little bit overlooked today, but I think that'd be a mistake. We saw the upside he showed at Martinsville, and I don't think it's going to be exactly like that, but he definitely has a good chance of getting up front today.
Stan saying, how about pivoting from Truex to Elliott?
It's basically the best pivot you can do if you're getting off of Truex, because if you're getting off of Truex, you're assuming Chase Elliott is leading those laps early on. So I think if you're not playing Truex, you basically have to get to Chase.
Jay Lopez brings up a great point, talking about how popular Harrison Bird and Ty Dillon are. You can play some really good top drivers. I mean, that is the reason why you play those guys today.
Yeah, I mean, you're not expecting them to outscore everybody else in your lineup, but they allow you to fit in those multi-dominator builds. Because if those guys are scoring 80, 90 points today, a 30-piece or a 25-piece from Burton or Dillon is going to get the job done.
Sean says, is $1,100 left on the table okay in a tournament? And Harvick, my main man today.
Well, I hope you don't mean Harvick as like your highest priced driver. If you just mean you like him today, I'm right there with you. I would have to know what the baseline of your lineup is. If you're following the rules, like at least 2 dominators, then I'm fine with having 1,100 on the table. I'd just be kind of curious to see what the rest is. JJ
Hawk says, how do you feel about Kurt Busch starting so far forward?
I think he's going to end up fading back at some point. I think early on he's probably going to hang, but I think throughout the duration of the race, it doesn't seem like he's got a great long run car. I do think he fades out there a bit.
Chase Elliott or Ryan Blaney for a last man in a FanDuel single entry?
FanDuel, it's a little bit different because the Dominator points aren't as important, but I still think Chase Elliott's got a much better chance to finish above Ryan Blaney today.
DraftKings GPP here. He's got 4 drivers wanting us to pick one. Blaney, Chastain, Larson, or Byron?
Blaney, Chastain, Larson. I'm going to have to go with the Chastain route there. It's similar play to Kyle Busch, but cheaper.
Yeah. Paul said he missed the top tier analysis. Love for Logano. No, there's not a lot of love coming here today for Joey Logano.
And it might be surprising. It's just from what we saw from Penske in practice, it wasn't very impressive to say the least. So I'm kind of shying towards the underweight approach there.
Jim goes, how stupid is it to have Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, and Harvick as dominators? I will tell you, I had Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell in my dominator pool. I did not have Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, all those, well, obviously Kyle Busch, you won your dominator pool, but Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, while they weren't personally guys that I put in my dominator pool, Christopher Bell was very iffy there. They're still fringe dominators. I have no problem at all if you throw them in there. So perfectly fine with that.
Ryan says last man in on a FanDuel single entry already has Truex in the lineup. Elliott or Blaney? It's got to be Elliott, right?
Yeah, it's got to be Elliott for me. I mean, yes, I know people don't want to go stack 1-2, but Elliott, I think, has a much better chance to get up front.
Gillen or Harrison Burton?
Harrison Burton for sure for me.
Yeah. GPP on DraftKings, Bell or Byron?
Byron's got the better dominator potential. In my opinion, was much faster in practice, and I think he's got a good chance to get up front at some point.
Any Amarola love today. He always screws me, but went with him again.
Yeah, I like Eric today. He's great at the short flat tracks. This is his best track type. So if you're going to play Amarola, this is one of those weeks to do it. Won at New Hampshire last year. It's been super fast with them so far this season and fast in practice today as well.
Chad says Busher or Dillon last man in. I'm guessing he's meaning Austin Dillon.
Yeah, if it's cash, it's Austin Dillon. If it's tournaments, I love Chris Buescher in tournaments today, so I'll go with that one.
Yeah. Sean says, he goes, I'm going to play Kyle and Chastain, hope Truex and Elliott wreck.
I hope not, or we're fighting today.
If Truex wrecks, I'm screwed. Yeah. Logan says, thoughts on Stenhouse and what is too much Austin Dillon? I think you've painted kind of the clear picture on Ricky just when it comes to a short flat track of, like there's always this place differential that intrigues you with Ricky, but just not great at this track set. No,
I don't believe he's finished better than 27th and won this year. It's just, he qualifies poorly, he practices poorly, and he finishes poorly. It's just been the case so far this year. So not sure why the trend would change. And
he'll race for your money though. Now he'll rate. It's good and bad thing. Right. Too much Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon is a pop roll play on both slates. Or no, DraftKings. Not necessarily on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think too much Austin Dillon is when you're getting I think people are going to play him in the 30s. I think if you're getting to 40, you have too much because Chris Buescher is a very similar play. And I don't think there's a reason why you should have way more Austin Dillon than Buescher today.
Yeah, and the ownership is drastically smaller on Chris Buescher.
Right, and he's honestly, he might be a better play overall. So,
Austin Dillon or Brad Keselowski. Now, you made a great point about Brad earlier in the show of these type of tracks. But of course, he's in much different equipment now. But he's also starting 9th.
Yeah, like I know I kind of talked about Austin Dillon could end up being a trap play, but at the same time, if he finishes 19th and Brad finishes 12th, I'd still rather have Austin Dillon in that scenario. So a bit of an easier path for Dillon there.
Last man in on a FanDuel single entry, Elliott or Blaney?
It's going to be Elliott for me. I'm not a huge fan of Blaney today or any of the Penske cars.
Do you have to play a Truex Elliott, or can you pivot away and hope he doesn't lead too much early on or wrecks late?
If you're pivoting away from Truex and Elliott, you have to get to guys. You have to get to more of like Kurt Busch, William Byron, Christopher Bell, because someone's going to lead laps early on. If you're banking on someone crashing late after leading a lot of laps, I think that's probably the wrong way to build lineups.
Manny, I appreciate you in the super chat there. Appreciate you checking out all the content we have over here on the NASCAR Live Before Lock show here on Stokastic.com. Favorite 6K on DraftKings, Burton, Custer, Dillon.
Austin Dillon or Ty Dillon?
I'm guessing it has to be Ty Dillon because he's saying sub 6K.
Oh, subs. I thought you said 6K, so I was a little confused. Yeah, it's going to be Ty Dillon for me. He's just the safest option of the bunch, and he has similar finishing position upside.
Thoughts on Michael McDowell?
So we get burned a lot not playing Michael McDowell, but I'm not going to play him today. Slow in practice, not great at the short class. Starting in 15th, I'm willing to take my chances.
It's like I was looking at him earlier after seeing the practice times, and I was like, okay, man, it's not great there. But then it's just like, you just look at what this guy has done since April 17th.
It's very good. There's no doubt about that.
Like his lowest score since April the 17th is 21 points. That was at the AdventHealth 400. Since then, he scored 30, 38, 34, 42, 35, 34, 27.
It's crazy. The run he is on is insane for the price that he is most weekends.
Yeah.
So I was trying to see what race the AdventHealth was. I'm not sure if I have that in my sheet. I was trying to remember which track that was. Does it say it on the thing?
No. It's not Kansas. I don't think it is.
Oh, wait. I think it is Kansas.
It is Kansas. Wow. How about that one? Yeah, Kansas.
Yeah, okay. All right. That makes sense. And I was just trying to think of if it was a short flat track or not. But yeah, I mean, Michael McDowell's been amazing. Can he surpass expectations? But to finish top 15 today, it's a real tough task from what we saw in practice.
I know exactly. Besides Jones or Bush, or who's the best play under 7,400 on DraftKings?
So besides Jones or Busher, which are the best plays under $7,400, it would have to be Austin Dillon for me. And besides that, it's kind of a wasteland of some pretty bad plays because you have Bubba Wallace, Dinger, Keselowski, Stenhouse. Guys I don't really like too much.
Harvick or Briscoe as the last piece in cash?
If it's cash, it's Briscoe for me because of the safety net, but I'm tempted to go with Harvick, but it'd be Briscoe.
Gillen or Burton last minute?
Burton for sure.
Bell or Harvick on a FanDuel GPP?
I like Harvick over on FanDuel. I think he can finish better than Bell when he starts five spots further back.
Amarola or Keselowski?
Almirola for me. His finishing position potential is higher.
Would you consider Byron a Dominator along with Truex? I do.
Yeah, he's not in the same. There's like a tier 1 Dominator. It's Truex and Elliott, and then Byron's in that tier 2 for me.
Bowman or Amarola in a GPP?
For tournaments, I'd have to go with Almirola.
Yeah. Sean says, sounds like either guy have Ellen or Truex.
Yes, everyone's going to have one.
Is Justin Haley a safe punt play?
He's safe in a sense where he's not like a bad driver or anything starting in 25th. His practice speeds indicate top 15 upside, so I'd say he's safe.
Yeah, I mean, I always hate to use the word safe in NASCAR.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like Kyle Busch is safe today, but I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah. Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin. That's the one that we definitely have not gotten here on the stream.
It's for sure Kyle Busch for me. Much faster in practice and much better at these tracks this year.
I mean, but if you wanted to get different from the field, Denny Hamlin would allow you to get different from the field.
That is true. I do think there's a reason he's much lower owned though. Like some of these guys I could agree with getting away from the chalk, but Bush's chalk that makes sense in my opinion.
I mean, but that's one of the things for me. It all comes down to the type of contest I'm playing in and how my thought process with that. By the way, no cars to the rear for the race at this time. Driver intros are now at 3:10.
Okay.
So you're probably looking at a little bit later on there in terms of that one. Is Todd Gillen a decent punt play?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think decent's the right word. It may be if you just stuck with that amount of money left, you throw him in. But even then, I'd probably just redo a lineup.
We'll finish on these two questions. First one's a 2v2 DraftKings. Ty Dillon and Chris Buescher or Austin Dillon and Harrison Burton?
I'm going to go with the Chris Buescher side there. Just some better finishing position potential.
And we'll finish with Shark's question here. Can both Dillons be played?
Yeah, I just built a lineup in my 3-max with both Dylans in there. So I hope it's okay. I hope it's fine.
Of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in here for the NASCAR Live Before It Lock show. Of course, huge thanks to our sponsor, PrizePicks. Be sure to use that promo code AWESEMO for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in here every Sunday. Of course, keep it locked all week long here to Stokastic.com for all of the great coverage. Of course, we got your coverage in terms of MLB. Of course, the All-Star game is coming up here on Tuesday. And then, of course, later on in the week, you've got MMA coverage. You got MLB coverage as we head into the weekend. So that's going to do it for this edition of Stokastic NASCAR Live Before Lock show. We will talk to you next week right here on Stokastic.com. Have a good day, everybody.